suspects in New Orleans and Las Vegas served in the military. Does the president find that aspect of this troubling, and is he concerned about the problem of radicalization in the military?
So look, I'm going to, obviously the FBI is continuing their investigation, so they can speak to the FBI and the Department of Defense, as you just stated, because of their status and affiliation to their military service. I would have to refer you to the Department of Defense to speak to that specifically. I don't want to get into a back and forth on this. What we can say is continue to condemn any form of violence and do whatever we can and continue to do the work, obviously, to make sure that there is a security protocol continues and we protect Americans and certainly communities across the country. I'm not going to dive into the two subjects.
Can you say the president had any reaction when he heard that detail about both of these suspects?
What I can say is the president, his heart is going out to the family who were certainly affected and lost a loved one that day. And what he wants to do is to make sure that his team is continuing to do the work to make sure that Americans are protected, communities are protected, and that's what I can speak to. You heard that from the president multiple times this week already, and that's going to be the president's focus.
Thanks, Karine. President-elect Trump, a little while ago today, seemed to take issue with the fact that American flags will be flown at half-mast at the time of his inauguration, considering the passing of former President Jimmy Carter. Is there any potential for that to not be the case? Is that a decision
say that one more time?
That the White House was
Say that one more time.
The flags are due to be flown at half-mast at the time of the inauguration, and President Trump seems to be taking issue with that. Is that a decision that the White House would consider reversing or reevaluating?
No.
Okay.
On U.S. Steel, the U.S. relationship with Japan is strong.
Yeah.
What is the national security concern the president sees by having this investment in an American company?
So look, you saw the president's statement. He talks about the CFIUS evaluation, how they determined that evaluation, how they got to their determination that this acquisition would place one of America's largest steel producers under the foreign control and create risk of our national security. This is from CFIUS. They are independent. The president said he was going to let the process play out, and it has played out. And so if you think about our national security and our critical supply chain, CFIUS, referred the matter to the president to make that decision. And so the president took that very seriously. He's always going to make sure that we put Americans first, and that is how you saw this decision play out from this president. And I talked about China and how they tend to distort the global market steel through unfair trade practices. And so, this is something that the president took very, very seriously and took CFIUS determination. We got to remember this is a cross-government panel when you think about CFIUS and the decision that they made. And so that's how the president came to this decision. It is about making sure that a U.S. company is U.S. owned, U.S. operating, supporting, continuing to protect the U.S. steel makers, obviously a union, and that's what the president led with, and that's how he made this decision.
Is it political?
No, it's not. This is, again, as I was answering that question, we've always said CFIUS is an independent body. We let this process play out. We made sure that this process played out, and that's exactly what we did. And CFIUS made a determination, and they said this acquisition would create risk for our national security and our critical supply chain. And the president took that really very seriously. And he took a careful look at the CFIUS evaluation, and so he decided to block this deal.
One other. President-elect Trump had communicated on his social media some inaccurate information related to New Orleans early on. Is the president at all concerned about the flow of information and briefing and access to whatever intelligence or whatever he might need in terms of this transition? Is he comfortable with the information flow to the president-elect on matters like this?
I mean, look, and I'm actually glad you asked this question, because one of the things that you all do as a journalist body is that you were able to fact check and say that what was stated by the president-elect was simply false, and I think that is important, right? Which is why we respect the hard work that all of you do. As it relates to the president and the information that he gets, obviously that's something for ODNI if it's related to intelligence and specific information in that nature. I'm not going to speculate beyond that, and I'm just going to leave it there.
Just three things. The FBI, NCTC, DHS put out a law enforcement bulletin earlier today warning of copycat attacks in the wake of New Orleans. What assurances can the White House offer to the public, many of whom might be scared of this kind of vehicle ramming attack? And to build on the earlier question, beyond just radicalization, is there a wider concern about the mental health implications connected to service members, given the similarities?
Yeah, so as it relates to the second part of your question, I'm going to have to refer you to the Department of Defense. They can speak to that. I'm not going to litigate that from here. Look, when it comes to, and you're right, the bulletin was put out, and what I can say is DHS and law enforcement remain vigilant to any potential copycat, and so they're going to consistently, DHS and law enforcement are going to consistently evaluate threats and going to share the latest information to disrupt any potential copycats, potential threats. And so that is their commitment. That's what they're working hard to do, and so they're going to be vigilant, continue to be vigilant on that aspect.
On bird flu, the bird flu outbreaks escalating, at least 66 human infections across 10 states now. The federal government has 2 bird flu vaccine candidates available. Why not ask the FDA to authorize them, even for particularly vulnerable farm workers? Why defer a decision on a vaccine to the next administration?
And so, look, that is something, as you know, the FDA, that is something that they decide on. They have a committee that when they have to make decisions like this, so I would have to leave it to them on how they move forward with that. Look, we take this very seriously. And USDA, HHS are on top of this. We are in touch with them. They're certainly in touch with local authorities on this. And so I do want to be very clear that CDC has been have said themselves that the risk to the general public is still low. And so we want to make sure that the American people are listening to CDC, and they certainly need to continue to do so. And we want to make sure, obviously, the nation's food supply remains safe. And so a couple of things that I do want to lay out that we have been able to do from this administration, which is protect, we made sure that since March, when this was detected, to protect the public health, protect animal health, protect our nation's food supply, and monitor all trends to prevent the spread of avian flu. So this work is going to continue. All relevant federal agencies continue to coordinate, as I just stated, with local authorities. And so we're going to do that, be consistent with that as we've done since March. And so that's what the administration is going to focus on.
But is the president concerned about deferring a decision about a vaccine to the next administration?
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals about what the next administration is going to do or not do. This is something that rests in the world of FDA, and so we want to let them lead by science and the facts. We've been pretty consistent on that over the last 4 years, and so we're going to leave it to FDA. But I'm just not going to get into hypotheticals about what the next administration is going to do or not do.
Last thing on a different topic, there have been reports that Chinese government hackers have breached a really sensitive office within the U.S. Treasury. OFAC, of course, administers economic sanctions. What more can you tell us about the scope of this and what information has been compromised?
So what I can say is the president was briefed on this. We are closely tracking the incident. We're working to identify actions to mitigate the future risks to U.S. government networks, and anything further I would have to refer you to the U.S. Treasury Department, FBI. They could speak to specifics on this particular incident, but the president's been briefed, and we're certainly closely tracking the incident.
Do you know of any taxpayer information or any PII?
I would have to refer you to the Treasury Department on that, and the FBI, as you know, is investigating this. Okay.
Hi. Has the president signed the Social Security Security Fairness Act?
So he will sign the Social Security Fairness Act in the upcoming days. Once we have that information, we'll certainly share with you on that particular date.
Can you just clarify? My understanding was it would be pocket vetoed if he didn't sign it by noon today. Are you saying that's not the case?
I can say to you that the President's going to sign it. I can't speak to the specifics of what you just laid out. I know the President is looking forward to signing that.